So today will be a podcast for Grand Prix. Of course, going from start to finish of, the entire Monaco Grand Prix. So today wasn't exactly the best of Grand Prix. I think we can all agree to that. I mean, the entire thing was quite boring up until around lap 30 odd roundabout. Of course, like the infamous pit stop made by Red Bull team where they forgot the tyres. Of course, this is a sort of follow up to the predictions that I made yesterday. Turns out the battery for my controller is getting low, which I will sort out. Where was I? Oh yes. Oh, this is going to be a long broadcast. So as this is going to be a continuation from the predictions I made in yesterday's video, where I said the Mercs were going to get pole, which I sort of was correct. Oh sorry, no I wasn't. Ricciardo got pole, Rosberg second, and Hamilton third. And I did say, I think, watch out for the Red Bulls because they have a very strong chassis and good low speeds, like low corner speeds. Of course, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of one Mercedes driver, that being Lewis Hamilton. Of course, I'm not going to say anything vulgar, but that's just going to be way too biased. Even though this is meant to be a biased video, I'm not going to go completely overboard. I'm going to try and think of positives and negatives from the race. So at the start, it was just completely tipping it down. Like 1 minute, just as soon as on Channel 4, when the race was being broadcast to the highlights, which I was personally watching because I prefer Channel 4 over Sky Sports, but that's a different story. It looks like it's going to be like a normal dry race, no rain in the vicinity, everything looks fine. Then all of a sudden one of the presenters has the umbrella out, and I thought, oh hello, this could be quite a brilliant one. It's like rain, and then at the very start of the race, turn one incident possibly, which I was sort of anticipating. I just thought, well, it's going to happen. I mean, it's Monaco, Formula 1 cars, and wet, and a turn one. About 22 cars piling into turn one, bound to be an accident. Started under safety car. I'm not saying I wanted there to be a crash, but it would have definitely made it more exciting with the unpredictability. So I was not happy at all that the race started under safety car. And we have one viewer. Alright. And the fact it started under safety car did kind of annoy me because, like, there isn't, not that I can remember, there was a Formula 1 race which started with a rolling start pretty much. So as soon as the safety car came in after, I think it was 3 or 7 laps, I'm not too sure, well it wouldn't have been 7 laps, that's way too long. I'm just going to stick with 5, because that's like the range in the middle. So then Ricciardo jumped straight forward with Nico Rosberg in second and Hamilton in third. And I just thought, alright then, let's get this going. Of course, Ricciardo flew forward, already getting about a 0.7 of a second gap to the Mercedes. And of course, this is when I thought, okay, this is where the Red Bull is going to shine. Very good chassis, very good low turning speeds. And I just thought this race is pretty much won for Daniel Ricciardo. And of course I see the battle behind them of the Mercedes. And of course I'm more of a Nico Rosberg fan. I thought, oh bugger, he's under attack from Lewis. What on earth is going to happen? And then I thought the inevitable would happen, and they would pile into each other either at Raskas, Mirabeau, or Casinos. I thought it was going to be inevitable that they would crash because they were on their last warning from Spain, where they collided. Oh, excuse me, my throat is a bit sore again. And I thought, hang on a minute, Ricciardo's going about 2 seconds faster than Nico Rosberg in a dominant Mercedes-powered car. And I just thought, this has got to be because of the Red Bull chassis and Ricciardo's skill, because we all know that Ricciardo can pull out some very brilliant races when he can. And then it turns out Nico Rosberg got the order on about lap 10. Nico let Lewis past. And then it was pretty obvious that Nico was holding everyone up. And so Nico, doing the team a favour, let Lewis through, see if Lewis could catch Daniel, which eventually he did under pit stop, which was around lap... Oh... This is when people were starting to go into intermediates instead of wets. So as soon as... I think it was one of the Haas car... No, it was Magnussen in the Renault that started off in the intermediates, starting the trend going. And then of course everyone got a good indication and said, right, it's obviously good for wet. Not good for wets, and it's best for inters now. So then Ricciardo's teammate Verstappen came in for intermediates. Kimi came in for intermediates, and so did Rosberg. But the front two, Ricciardo and Hamilton, didn't. And then as soon as Ricciardo came in, Hamilton didn't. The track was starting to dry out a little bit. It was obvious intermediates were the best tyre to be on. But Lewis Hamilton, being quite stubborn, decided that he was going to wait it out until the track got dry enough to go on to the slick tyres, either the ultra soft, super soft, or just soft tyres. Quite right. I'm trying to recall the race, even though I only watched it about 2 hours ago. Kimi Raikkonen piling into the chicane at Mirabeau, I think that's the name of the corner, I'm not too sure. Completely piled in, nearly taking Massa with him, and nearly collecting Grosjean as well. Grosjean was not happy with that at all. Kvyat got into a little scrap with Magnussen as well. Of course, Kvyat getting the blame for that, which of course I would personally think was a bit of a you touch me, I touch you sort of incident, because coming into Raskas, Magnussen tapped Kvyat, and coming through Raskas, the final corner, Kvyat had hit Magnussen, and for some reason Kvyat got the ultimatum blame. Pretty much that, you know what, like, you ended it, it's your fault. I thought it was a bit harsh. And oh my word, I'm trying to remember now. Sorry, notifications are going off my phone, it's a little distracting. So, and also one of my favourite drivers of this new era, because of course you've got this new era of drivers coming in. You've got Sainz, Verstappen, Palmer, Magnussen, Van Dorn. I believe that's all I can remember right now. Oh, there's Wehrlein as well, Haryanto and all that. My personal favourite was out of the race, Jolyon Palmer. I absolutely love this kid. Jolyon Palmer, 20-odd-year-old, in his debut race, done pretty well, keeping hold of, who was it again? Verstappen, that's it. And we've got 2 viewers. Okay. It's time to pick up an audience now. But that's just besides the point. Then, oh my word, then this is when everything really kicks off. We're going into like the mid-lap 25s now. And I don't really do this sort of thing a lot. I just tend to ramble on and on. Not like now. But going back to the race, lap 25-ish, 26, then that was when the track started to dry out for good. Everyone had thought, right, intermediates have sort of had it now. And Ricciardo had come in on the intermediates. Hamilton was staying out. Ricciardo was about 0.4 of a second behind Hamilton, so very, very close. And Hamilton thought he could wade it out and wait until the track got dry, which he kind of did, but it sort of screwed him over because he thought he could get away with a 22-second lead, but Ricciardo caught up 22 seconds to Hamilton. So then Hamilton came into the pits. Ricciardo tried to perform the overcut, which is where you stop a lap after the car that was in front of you to try and overcut him to try and get back to first place. Hamilton went straight onto slick tyres, which was the the ultra soft tyre, which is the purple sidewall tyre. Ricciardo making fantastic pace. He came in at around, the lap after. Red Bull wanted him to go on to, it was either softs or ultra softs. And then Ricciardo came in, mechanics took the intermediate tyres off, there were no tyres there. The Red Bull guys were late bringing in the tyres because they couldn't make up their mind if they wanted to do the ultra soft or the soft tyre, which would be either the purple or the yellow tyre. And eventually Ricciardo went on to the red wall tyre, the super softs. And it was then and there that every Red Bull fan had immediately thought, right, that's it, Ricciardo's lost the race. But because he was about 21 seconds ahead of Hamilton, it was thought that maybe he could get in front of Hamilton. If it was a slick pit stop, like the 3 seconds you normally see, Ricciardo would have been in front, no doubt. But because of this error, the pit stop took 13 seconds. And so coming out of the pit lane, who comes through? Lewis Hamilton. And then that was the moment every Red Bull fan's heart sunk. They thought, right, that's it. Like, there's no way Ricciardo's going to be able to overtake Hamilton unless Ricciardo does one of his brilliant honey badger moves around the outside or does the switchback going through the end of the second sector or something. And then came the chicane incident. Personally, all I'm gonna say is there was a lot of foul-mouthed language going on in my house. I was not happy one bit. All I'm gonna say is I was this close. Well, I can't really demonstrate it on here, but let's say about 2 millimeters from ripping my own hair out. I was so angry. I just thought, oh, fucking Hamilton is, for those of you who didn't see the race, it was obviously a big incident. Actually, I'll have that car. It was well, not like you would have thought it was a big incident. Hamilton had corner cut to the chicane, which you're not allowed to do because the chicane can make or break a race. It's like if you cut it, then you have to give the position back. If all 4 tyres go over the white line, you've technically cut the corner. So let's here's a good demonstration. See this red line, right? All 4 tyres are over, and say, well, imagine there was a car behind me, and if I'd cut the corner and gone straight like that, I would have to pull aside and let the car go through. Hamilton did not. Hamilton squeezed Ricciardo out of the corner So Hamilton had cut the chicane, Ricciardo didn't. Then on the straight after the chicane, Hamilton pretty much did this, cut off Ricciardo. So see where those white lines end, right to where the roof of that car was. Hamilton pretty much squeezed him off nearly into the barriers, and of course Ricciardo had to back out of the move which he was going to overtake Hamilton on. And once Ricciardo had backed out, he threw up the hand of frustration, a bit like this. Hang on, see if I can... Oh, bugger, I have to go through it again. You can tell I don't do this often. He pretty much did this, and was like, fuck you, Hamilton. He like stuck his hand up in rage. Even though it didn't look like it, it was just a hand up. After the race, he was not happy. He messaged the team via radio, was like, oh, what the fuck was that? What's he fucking doing? And then it was just a straight fight till about 10 laps to the end. Because 10 laps to the end was about where Ricciardo's tyres were starting to go and he couldn't catch because he was stuck behind the back marker, thus leading Hamilton to go straight forward. And before we get to the end of the race, I just want to comment on some other people's races that were had. Kvyat went out because he had that crash with Magnussen earlier. Verstappen had crashed out. Perez got into third. Alonso got into fifth. And Vettel was struggling to overtake the Force India of Sergio Perez. It was quite difficult for a lot of people because, of course, Monaco is a track which you can't really overtake on that much. Who else had a alright race? Nico Rosberg's race was funny. He was supposed to have been around top 3, guaranteed top 3, but for some reason he ended up 6th, getting overtaken by Nico Rosberg, finished straight at the end of the race. It was oh no, yeah, come on. So of course, coming up to the end of the race, 10 laps before, Ricciardo completely backed out of it. He just thought, you know what, Hamilton's going to win it, I'm not going to be able to overtake, I'm stuck behind the back marker, he's just growing a lead up to about 5 seconds, there's no point in fighting anymore, might as well just bring the car home, which he did. Of course, Sergio Perez bringing in third for Force India, a very rare occasion for the team. Once all the cars ended up in Parc Fermé, and we got our first comment. Once the car came into Parc Fermé, and for those of you that know Daniel Ricciardo, he's always smiling. If he's been disqualified, smiling. If he's lost the race, he's smiling because he's like, oh yeah, you know, at least I tried. I gave it my all and such. Crashed out, smiling. Won the race, beaming, which of course unfortunately he never has. Today's race, he should have won. He would have won. If... I don't know who to point the blame at more. I want to say Hamilton, but of course that 13-second pit stop didn't help things. So I'm going to say it's a bit of an equal jab because Ricciardo did catch up to Hamilton in the chicane and he was mugged out of the race, which was actually quite silly. Turn that radio off. And as soon as Daniel Ricciardo took his helmet off and you could see his face, he was not smiling, and you knew either the team or Lewis had fucked up, like big time. Even on the podium, I give more incentive to that it was Lewis's fault because Ricciardo, being quite a gentleman, yeah, he shook his hand, but he didn't say a word, not that I could make out or anything. Just shook his hand and just took his trophy, second place, and got on with it. Ricciardo was frustrated, and of course Hamilton, being in my opinion the smug little shit that he is, throwing the trophy in the air, being all arrogant when normally if he gets second place he's stropping around like a little fucking child. Rosberg having an alright race, of course, getting overtaken by Hulkenberg on the start-finish straight on the last lap. Changeable conditions. So at the start it was raining, then it got dry, and then eventually drier until it was properly dry, and then it started raining again a little bit towards the end, about 2 laps to go. In my opinion, that race was pretty damn boring. I was just sat there thinking, this is the most boring race I've ever seen, and it's Monaco. It's supposed to be brilliant. It's supposed to be like crashes, high volatile risks of overtakes, but it was none of that. It was just a pretty stale race, and it wasn't that fun for the spectators. I mean, all the commentators were saying that was the most electrifying Monaco race of the decade, which I don't really see as to how on earth that really is. So in my opinion, it was very, very boring. What was there left to talk about, really? Now that we've covered the main thing, let's go on to like things that weren't as televised, let's say. So around the apologies. We had Massa holding up a train of about 5 cars, including Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari. I believe Kvyat as well, before his incident with Magnussen, and Hulkenberg. I don't exactly recall who, but everyone else was on Inters, but Massa was on wets, and so technically he was holding everybody up, which wasn't fun for everyone else. So we're figuring, how the hell do we get past this car? He's on wets, he's not letting us through. And then eventually Massa came in too late for Inters. Pretty much ruined his race. I think he finished about 8th or 10th, which isn't where Williams is supposed to be. The whole fiasco with the Saubers, that was actually quite enjoyable to watch. Felipe Nasr in front of Marcus Ericsson. Ericsson about 0.2 of a second behind Nasr. Nasr being told to let Ericsson through because he was holding Ericsson up. Nasr going, no, give me a reason why, I want a reason. Sauber didn't really give him a reason, I'm not too sure why. All they said was just let him through, and of course Nasr didn't let him through. Ericsson went on the team radio to say, why is he not letting me through? A bit like the Hamilton-Rosberg of Hungary last year. And then eventually in Raskas, Ericsson had had enough. He saw an open gap in Raskas, he thought he'd take it, and fair play to him, he did take it. Unfortunately they crashed into Raskas, the penultimate corner, eventually taking them both out of the race. So I felt quite bad for the Saubers, because I mean, like, they're already in a money fiasco where like they can't bring the money that they need to the team, and they've pretty much got drivers that are paid drivers where they bring money to the team only and for no other reason, which is quite sad. And Sauber are just running out of money. They've admitted themselves that Sauber is a poor investment in Formula 1 because they don't have the money to pay off for investments. And today's race just solidified that. And pretty much that Sauber might actually run out of it, might run out of money by the end of the season. But of course we don't know that. Ericsson, I feel, he can string a race together if he's given the right car and the right people around him. Because in his Caterham days in 2012? Around it... No, sorry, 2014, that's it, 2014. He done alright, he wasn't too bad. Of course, that being like 16th and 15th sort of place. Who else can we talk about? The Manners had quite a quiet race, they just kept to themselves. The Haas, I think Gutierrez, He was close to slamming it in the wall at Raskas, but didn't. Grosjean got infuriated by Kimi, because once he'd planted himself into the wall and lost his front wing, he accidentally caught up Grosjean and pretty much blocked him, nearly piling Grosjean into the barriers. Grosjean wasn't too happy with that. What other teams did we talk about? Renault, the only runner there of Kevin Magnussen. Of course, Palmer having a heavy crash on this on the second actual racing lap, where he just completely lost control. Magnussen having a bit of a race all to himself, didn't really have much competition up with him.
Relax, you where you belong.
I've actually forgotten most teams in the midfield. Sauber, I've mentioned them. Haas, I've mentioned them. Actually, tell you what, let me actually have a look. My mind's gone blank. I've literally forgotten most of the midfield teams. So let's have a look here. Oh, this music isn't half doing my head in. Turn that off. Right. Oh, so the news report, Nico Rosberg was thanked for being a gentleman in Monaco. That's nice. The Toro Rossos, Kvyat was out, Carlos Sainz wasn't too bad.
Hello? Hi there.
There we go. McLaren, they had quite a bloody good race. Of course, yesterday where I predicted, sorry, I didn't predict, Ron Dennis reported that McLaren were going to be up there with the front runners, and I'll give them credit, they were. Of course, Button 9th, Alonso 5th, which, credit where it's due, bloody brilliant. Underpowered Honda engine, third best chassis in the field, I'll give them credit. No, excuse me, if I'm pausing, I'm just slightly burping because I've just had a bit of food. What else we got? Toro Rosso, we've done there. Force India, Hulkenberg just overtaking Nico Rosberg to take 6th place on the start finish straight on the very last lap, which I thought was quite impressive. Be quiet. Who else in Force India? Oh yes, Sergio Perez. He had quite, well, bloody brilliant race. Equalled his best ever result, a 3rd. Took advantage of the pit stops and the retirements, and of course that whole situation with Daniel Ricciardo not getting the pit stops right. Sorry. Oh, what am I blaming Ricciardo for? Team getting the pit stops wrong. Of course brings them up to 5th in the time championship. Williams, Bottas, again had quite a fairly quiet race. Didn't really see much of him. Massa again didn't see much of. Of course, mentioning that Massa had that whole incident with Vettel and that whole midfield being blocked. Red Bull, Verstappen crashed out entering Casino Square, a bit like Alonso did in 2010. Ricciardo, Daniel Ricciardo, he's my driver of the day. I mean, pole position, had fastest lap. I think he had the fastest lap, I'm not too sure, I'll have to look that up in a minute. Had the pace, if I had more than the pace, he was the man to beat at Monaco. Oh, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. he was a man to beat at Monaco because he was on pole position. He wholly earned that. I can't discredit Daniel for that incredible pole yesterday. Only to come short because of a mishap from both Red Bull, pit crew and Hamilton. Personally, my biased views, I'd put Hamilton to blame because after the pit stop, Ricciardo did catch Hamilton in contention to overtake him for the race lead. Ferrari. What can we say about Ferrari? Raikkonen crashed out, lost his front wing. I don't know why Raikkonen was trying to drive over his front wing when he could have just braked, let the front wing just go forward a little bit with the momentum, and then Raikkonen can just drive around the front wing. Instead, Raikkonen was pretty much driving it, driving the wing under his car, stopping the front wheels from moving, and he had to go down to the escape road at the chicane, and it was just cringeworthy the entire time. It was just Raikkonen, what on earth are you doing? Please don't. Like, you're ruining your own race here, mate. Sebastian Vettel got fourth, about a second behind the Force India of Sergio Perez. Of course, in qualifying, Sebastian reported that the team had gone backwards. Okay, that's quite new for a team to go backwards. In development terms, of course. And then Mercedes. Of course, you got Nico Rosberg finishing in 7th. And
You're gonna try and show me this, boss. Okay then, boss. Damn it.
pretty much finished, yeah, like I said, just finished 6th. Quite a slow race. And I think you could tell that Rosberg definitely did not have the pace in today's race. Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton, I mean, call it a win if you want. I say it was a stolen victory. He just took it from where he just took it from right under Ricciardo's feet, which is quite, I feel is quite disrespectful. I mean, it's not about Lewis anymore. I mean, he's got to hand it to Daniel. I mean, he's only just like come in. It's his 3rd season with Red Bull. He deserves a little bit of credit because he is a fantastic driver. Hamilton, I wish I could say the same, but if you've ever noticed this entire season or last, whenever Hamilton comes second to his teammates, he always throws a fit. He always places a blame on Rosberg. Either he forced me wide, he wouldn't let me through, he wouldn't let me overtake him, but of course vice versa. Nico's been having to let Lewis through his entire career pretty much with Mercedes, and because it just comes by to him. So today when he had to let Lewis through, it was all like, oh, I'll just take this one on the chin. I mean, I'm already leading the championship. This isn't really going to hurt me that much. I've still got about a 40 points lead, so that's pretty decent. But yeah, as I said, driver of the day, for me, of course, Daniel Ricciardo. Completely deserved that victory. He was robbed of it, in my opinion. And now for so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop on my phone and see what breaking news there are, if any. So this is pretty much how this entire podcast is going to run. I'm just going to run through the entire race, my thoughts on it, the teams and how their races went, and my driver of the day, and then to finalise it, I'm just gonna look up the news, see if there's anything breaking since after the news. So I'll just give you, I don't know. Like I say, you can just like look at his face. So news, what we got for news of Formula 1 from the Monaco Grand Prix. BBC 2 hours ago. Oh, here we go. Lewis Hamilton thanks Nico Rosberg for being a gentleman in Monaco. Wish we couldn't say the same for Lewis. Lewis wins Grand Prix. Nico Rosberg had complete lack of confidence. Completely understandable, actually. I mean, wet conditions, you had cars left, right, centre, forward, backwards of you, and you're in the rain. You won't be able to floor it. In fact, you won't want to. I mean, if you're Ayrton Senna, I mean, you're obviously going to go for something, but if you're going to play the clever man's game, you're going to wait it out. And unfortunately, waiting it out in today's instance brought him 6th place. From Autosport 3 hours ago, Sauber blames both F1 drivers for Monaco Grand Prix collision. I mainly blame Nasser because he wouldn't let Ericsson through when he was specifically told this is coming from the top. So Peter Sauber, the owner of the Sauber group, obviously ordering Nasser to let Ericsson through. Penalties. Daniel Kvyat, Marcus Ericsson get Canadian GP grid drops. I don't see why Daniel should, or Marcus Ericsson really, because I thought that they were both in the right to do what they did, and of course this is coming from Sky Sports, so they're obviously going to be a bit biased towards Hamilton, as they normally are, as well as Martin Brundle. As much of a legend he is, I simply dislike him for that one reason, because he's just biased towards Lewis Hamilton, when it was clearly his fault for some crashes, for example in Spain. Daniel Kvyat, as I said, he was in every right to try and overtake in Mirabeau, diving down the inside, a bit like Jules Bianchi did on Kamui Kobayashi in 2014. And that's also a bit of news I wanted to say, but of course I never had this pit lane podcast idea. Oh, sorry, that's pit lane podcast. I meant, admittedly, I got the podcast idea, yes, from Arava, the pit lane podcast. I'd give that a shout out. I just thought I'd make my own little rendition of it. Of course, not like completely ripping off Arava, because I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen any of his podcasts, so I just thought I'd give myself a shot at it. I'm doing horribly, I know. Kvyat was in every right. Again, Bianchi dived down the inside in Raskas on Kamui Kobayashi. Jules Bianchi, in case you didn't know, he was supposed to be getting a Ferrari 2015 seat, actually, before his tragic accident in Japan. Wait. Oh my goodness, I've forgotten when Bianchi had his accident. Oh no. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 2014. Yes. Oh my god. I'm awful at this. 2014, when Bianchi had his accident in Japan, which of course was a horrible shock, of course, for us to hear that he passed away in early 2015, which was horrible to hear. He was supposed to be getting a Ferrari seat, according to President at the time, Luca Di Montezemolo. He was supposed to be getting that Ferrari seat alongside Sebastian Vettel, because Kimi was supposed to be on the way out, because he wasn't too happy at Ferrari, and he thought he was just going to back out of it. And of course, since hearing that Bianchi had the accident, Raikkonen was kind of like he felt obligated to stay on at Ferrari, and quite rightly so. He's starting to pick up a career for himself. So yeah, that's a little bit of knowledge. You know, I've rambled on about that for too long. I do apologise. I'm not used to speaking. Marcus Ericsson again had every right to overtake. Nasser wouldn't let him through. News: Red Bull reveals Ricciardo's tyres trapped at back of garage. I'm sorry, but that is no excuse. The Red Bull team had a lap, and I mean a lap, to get those tyres from the back of the garage. So unless it took 2 minutes to go all the way to the back of the garage and to bring them to the pit lane, I don't buy that. I'm sorry, Red Bull. You had the choice of which tyre to bring on. It was supposed to be the soft tyre. Of course, they thought, no, not the soft, bring in the super soft. And of course Red Bull cocked that up, but I don't believe that they were stuck at the garage. I think they were too busy figuring out which tyre to go on. From Autosport, Monaco Grand Prix F1 pit layout caused Daniel Ricciardo tyre mix-up. There you go. Oh, here's something. From Autosport again, Fernando Alonso thought McLaren might grab Monaco Grand Prix podium. That could have been very, possible if things went according to plan. Monaco Grand Prix, Kvyat penalised. Now that's interesting. As I said, he's in every right to. In every right, to be honest. Is there any more news, or is that it for today? Okay, this is quite contradictory. This is quite funny. When I was checking my Facebook earlier, it said Hamilton felt he earned the victory. Oh, no, sorry, I read the headline wrong. Forget what I just said about Facebook. Hamilton is quoted as saying, "Victory didn't feel lucky." No, Mr. Hamilton, I'm sorry. In your ego, I'm going to have to debunk that. Ricciardo had a fault in the pit lane. You squeezed him out, nearly pushing him into the barrier, and you ran away with the win. That's quite disgusting, actually. Red Bull and Toro Rosso to use Renault power in 2017. Of course, Toro Rosso using the revised 2015 Ferrari engine. Pastor Maldonado might return in 2017. And to wrap it all up, the official F1 2016 game has been announced. So today, to wrap all up, was awful. The race was awful. Hamilton, I hate your guts. If I was Ricciardo, I would have punched you straight there on the podium. Ricciardo, I feel sorry for you, mate. I really do. You didn't deserve to be screwed over 2 weekends in a row. And it turns out one of the viewers is actually messaging me. Well, there you go. I'm not ignoring you. I'm reading the messages as we speak. But to finish on a final note, driver of the day, Ricciardo. Race overview. Bloody awful. Anyway, that's all I've got for today, you guys. Zombie episode 7 might be coming out a little later, so keep an eye out for the channel on that. Or if you haven't seen the zombie series, why not check it out? It's on my channel somewhere. Alright. I wish you guys the best of luck. Let's see what Canada brings us. Let's hope it's a fair race. Alright, bye.